now we know the president has nominated Justice Torkonoo for the very big and very hot seat of Chief Justice once Justice Yeboah retires next month. Look, there's a lot to learn about the person the president is favoring, and let's see what we know about her, Ray.
Now, her full name is Gertrude Isaba Torkonoo, and she, of course, she's a supervising judge currently for the commercial courts. She was born on 11 September 1962 in Cape Coast, but she's actually from Winneba in the central region too. She was born to Abraham Kofi Saki and Comfort Abba Saki, who were both teachers at the time, and she's the second of 5 siblings. She started school at the secondary level at the Wesley Girls High School in Cape Coast, and then moved on to Achimota School for her A levels. She studied law and sociology at the University of Ghana for her first degree, then later on completed a professional course in 1986. She did an LLM in intellectual property law from Golden State University in San Francisco in the USA, and a postgraduate diploma in international law and organizations from the then what they call Social Studies Institute in the Netherlands. Yeah. After law school in 1986, she did a national service with FIDA, the Legal Aid Center, and her pupillage was with Fuga & Co., where she went on to become an associate and later on a director of the same firm. In 1997, she set up her own law firm and became the managing partner. After 18 years of practice, Justice Torkonoo was invited to join the judiciary in 2004 as a justice of the High Court. In October 2012, she was promoted to the Court of Appeal and rose to become a justice of the Supreme Court in 2019. So, yes, since 2019, she's been on the bench. And, of course, we know that she was one of the Supreme Court judges who presided over the 2020 presidential petition.
Yeah.
Yes, we know that for a fact. In fact, outside that, she's been writing too anyway. Judicial writings include Creating Capital from Culture and On Easy Marriage. There's also one on examining the Boroughs and the Lenders Act of 2015 and the Law of Interest in 2021. She's also been part of the editorial committee of the Association of Magistrates and Judges and been the chief editor for the development of the Judicial Ethics Training Manual. And she's also held this position. She was the vice chair of the E-Justice Steering Oversight Committee and the vice chair of the Internship and Clerkship Program for the Judiciary. She's currently the chair of the E-Justice Steering and Oversight Committee, and she's also a faculty member of the Judicial Training Institute and a member of the governing board of the Judicial Training Institute. When she's not at church, she does a lot of wonderful things, which includes writing as a poet, and she's also she's an author of 2 books, and she's also a poet. She also serves as a governing council of the Central University, and she is an ardent minister in the Body of Christ and worships with the International Central Gospel Church, Calvary Temple. And she's been part of Aglo International and serves as a board member of Theo Vision International, a ministry that translates the Bible and creates audio Bibles in African languages. So I was talking about cases, right? So Blay has been following her actual judicial decisions.
Yes, and by Blay you mean our court correspondent Joseph Ackah Blay, who
Brilliant.
I was about to introduce royally until you spoiled it.
Yeah,
Blazing, it's good to have you. But interesting so far, right? Judge who has such a colorful record, and in fact I like the fact that she writes poems. Poetic justice. Okay, Blay, what else do we know?
and so I'll just touch on some of the cases that she's handled or been a part of since she joined the Supreme Court. One of them is Michael Ankoma Nimfa versus James Gyakye Quayson and the Attorney General. For those who remember, this is the case in which the Supreme Court, by a majority 5-2 decision, restrained the Member of Parliament for Asin North, that's James Gyakye Quayson, from holding himself as a Member of Parliament. She was joined by her colleagues, Justice Kulendi, who authored the lead opinion, Justices Dote, Mariam Owusu, and Henrietta Mensah Bonsu to make the 5, with the other dissenting 2 being Justice Doji and then Amegacha. The court effectively in that case upheld the principle that the issue of constitutional supremacy was important, and that when someone makes an allegation that any portion of the constitution has been violated, then it was important that whatever that infraction is to be put on hold immediately. And so that's what informed the court's decision to restrain the member of parliament. And we still know that the injunction is still in force and he's not being able to perform the duties as a member of parliament. The court's supposed to deal with that, an aspect of that particular case, next month. Another case that she was a part of the panel was the case filed by Association of Finance Houses against the Bank of Ghana and the Attorney General. This case had to do with directives that they were issued by the Bank of Ghana to these institutions. The institutions took the view that the directives were in the nature of orders, rules, and regulations made by a person under an authority. And if you look at Article 11 of the Constitution, they took the view that they should have gone to Parliament and gone through that particular process. But the court disagreed and said that the directives that were issued were of an administrative nature and not legislative. And so she was part of the 7-0 decision that ruled in favor of the Bank of Ghana, saying that they don't require to take that particular decision or directives to the Parliament, as the Association of Finance Houses had argued. Right. When she was at the Court of Appeal, she handled a number of the announced cases. The cases the judges who were caught up in the judicial corruption scandal filed against the Judicial Committee. Yeah. And in terms of what her views are on corruption, we can get a sense of that from listening to her when she appeared before Parliament's Appointment Committee when she was vetted as a Supreme Court judge.
We have or should have enough arrangements. You know, I see different strains of behavior that fall into corruption. There are those that are purely criminal. Then there are those that are ethical. You are very right that everybody is pointing to the next person, but we are really dealing with many issues that every area of life. So it's prevalent social behavior, and we all have to discuss it and accept that it's not helpful, and we have to deal with it.
There seems to be no ceiling as provided for in the Constitution as to the number of Supreme Court justices. We always had between 13 and 14, not exceeding it at all times. Do you share a view that Parliament could cap that?
Now, the Supreme Court is the final court. If we should find ourselves in a situation where a constitutional matter engages a certain number of the Supreme Court bench, and yet engages them around the clock, and yet another number, because a court is only duly constituted when you have 5 people sitting. You need more panels to deal with different issues, and you know the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court is extremely broad, and it's necessarily so. So then, if you cap to an unfortunate number and find that the nation doesn't have the number of judges to deal with a particular crisis situation that could happen, I don't think it would be very useful.
Fascinating stuff there. A quick addition, my attention has just been drawn to the fact that that judgment in Association of Finance Houses versus Bank of Ghana, it was also authored by Yoni Kulendi.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And
anyway,
the other issue, this issue about how judges and lawyers generally dressed. I mean, it's one issue that came up again during that particular vetting. She has quite some interesting views.
But I do agree with you that when there's no air condition, when the air is not blowing properly, it's a difficult position to be in, wearing wig and gown and bib.
Yeah. So what's your view on them? Do you think it should stay, or we should reform and move away from it?
I wish we could even wear African print rather than black suits.
Yeah, Justice Torkonoo there. Now, of course, now that we know, now that the name is out and we are all learning lots and lots more about her, let's draw attention to what it means for the position of Chief Justice. What kind of person is needed, and what will a person with a record like Justice Torkonoo bring to the role?
Raymond, you want to take this?
So,
learned friends
I
are looking at
I
each
think
other.
I can make the point about the timing of the appointment.
yes.
As in the time that she's going to take over, because Chief Justice Eniniabo's tenure generally good, but there have been very serious issues of whether the courts have been fair that have been raised mainly by elements within the opposition NDC, led by the party's former presidential candidate John Dramani Mahama. In fact, Mr. Mahama is on record to have said that the next Chief Justice must embark on a path to restore the image of the judiciary.
That's true.
And so, unlike her predecessors, that is, if it goes through and she takes office eventually, she would have to. There's a section of Ghanaians who generally do not have confidence, particularly in the apex courts and the judiciary to an extent. And it's something that one way or the other she would have to address in the course of being the head of the judiciary and also being a member of the Supreme Court itself. You would have to deal with that issue one way or the other.
The Afrobarometer reports had for a very long time increasingly be delivering a very terrible judgment on the trust of the people in the courts. That's one issue that she has to deal with. And I'm happy she was with the electronic, justice system. I remember I had in 2017 or so spoken to another judge on what they really wanted to do. The crux of the engagement is that we are going to the level of electronic engagement where you don't really need to come to the court before you are told small things like there's an adjournment. When you could have been sent a text or so, you don't come from Cape Coast to Accra to attend to a court case, then just have to be sent away because it's not possible to be heard. And fast-tracking and improving the justice delivery system. There's a lot of people who, even though they may not understand the court system properly and they do not understand laws properly, have difficulties with how justice is delivered. Not just because they have met judges, but how dockets get missing, how they try to get court dates and it becomes difficult, and trying to do the basic justice system things that they do not get. I'm just hoping that she can reform it to the level. And there's a point to which you can say, well, politics can play a role. But I also think, compared to the alternative, she appeared to all external appearances a more independent person. A person that would, going into the next year, having an election and all of that, many will believe will not be under anybody's control, either perceived or in reality. So that's a bit of the excitement that this comes with. There's a lot, and more than ever in our history, there's a lot of sometimes unwarranted attack directed at the judiciary. Hopefully she gets the people on her side more to understand that her job is to deliver justice and make sure the wheels of justice are grinding, whichever part of the country this happens to be, and restore the pedigree that some might have lost due to the attacks and the other things that have happened to the judiciary over the period. So that's the Herculean task she would have to deliver on. Does she have what it takes to do it? I think she does. Has she done it in times past? The evidence will be shown, more importantly, in the period that she will stay in office. And if for nothing at all, I will be so excited that she delivers on that e-justice program to the fullest element.
I mean, do you think her experience on the bench will be an issue? She's just been at the Supreme Court
2019.
Since 2019, and especially when those, in terms of how the court will look once the Chief Justice exits, you have Justice Doche, who will just be there for about a month as the senior most. So he will exit in June. Then also there's Paul Bafoboni, who would be there for about 3 more years, and we know that he has been at the Supreme Court for a while now. And there's also Justice Gabriel Pwaman, who was appointed in June 2015, so also over there now. And so in terms of the makeup of the court, and we know that it doesn't matter actually, because in times past there have been individuals who were fresher in the court, went up to become Chief Justice and held on to it for that long.
Yeah, but why would that be the most important matter here? Because she's been in the judiciary since 2004. So if for nothing at all, she's well acquainted with the structures and the abilities of that particular institution. The hope is that also being in the system for long may hinder progress or hinder reform. We cannot dismiss the fact that that institution demands and requires some level of reform. So perhaps she'll be the one to deliver it. And that's on her leg now, because, as I've said, if your institution is consistently being attacked, you need to sit back and check what you can do to not only prevent these attacks, but also improve on the quality of the work that's been done by that institution. Because without the judiciary, mostly it's called the conscience of society. Without that, no society will surely perform to the level it's expected of it.
I mean, I agree. Look, I mean, she's been there since 2004. We know the case of Georgina Wood. She got in there in no time. She became Chief Justice. And I think that the evidence on the ground suggests that during the thing about being Chief Justice, the perception really matters. And that's why I'm happy she's been appointed. She's been nominated. Perception matters because you're going into a time where there's a lot of mistrust for our judiciary. And so at this point in time, who will be the best person to be appointed that will be accepted by all? And so far, you haven't heard anything, even during her vetting at the time when she was appointed to, nominated for the Supreme Court. I mean, going through the vetting process, you didn't get the perception that she probably belonged to one side. Okay. And so if people will have conversations about parking the court or whatever, she will not be one of those who will be seen as parking the court. And that's very important to, to choose such a person to become Chief Justice. I believe sincerely that having been nominated, if the president submits a name to Parliament, if approved, the kind of condemnation of our judiciary, all things being equal, would reduce, and I foresee the ratings also improving in our judiciary. Let's see what happens.
I mean, the other issue, Raymond, the age factor. I mean, clearly she, in terms of age,
she's 61.
Which comes to very similar to the Georgina Wood situation, the potential of someone staying throughout an 8-year cycle.
Yeah, that's an interesting development. We hope to see how it runs, at least for the period that we have it.
I miss the days when the president would explain to the nation the reasons behind his nominations. It really helped us get an idea of what advantages a person is bringing to a role, so that we could also measure them up to those standards as they continue to perform. Anyway, congratulations to Justice Torkonoo, who has been nominated by the president for the role of Chief Justice once Justice Nini Yeboah's retirement commences next month.